Hi, everyone. Leslyn Keith here again to talk to you about issues with the ketogenic diet for lymphatic and fat disorders. And today I wanted to talk to you about special issues that can come into play when you're doing a dietary change and hopefully to a ketogenic diet, restricting your carbohydrates and maybe increasing your intake of healthy fats. And so one of the first issues that may come up right away, sometimes on the first day, is electrolyte balance, because we tend to lose electrolytes much more quickly when we're eating a ketogenic way of eating. You tend to lose a lot of water, and with that goes salt and sometimes magnesium and potassium. Now, magnesium and potassium, we can pretty much, or actually potassium and salt, we can get very easily from our diet. So you can get, there's lots of healthy foods on a ketogenic diet that can give you those vital minerals and electrolytes that you need. But sometimes we need to have magnesium supplementation. And so sometimes the magnesium can cause, some forms of magnesium supplements can cause diarrhea. And so sometimes if you're taking a magnesium supplement while you're eating a ketogenic diet, you can get that diarrhea and then you blame the foods that are on the ketogenic diet. So I want you to make sure that you avoid usually the carbonate, chloride, gluconate, and oxide forms of magnesium. If you use the magnesium glycinate, that is less likely to cause diarrhea. And then the other really important electrolyte to make sure you get enough on when you change to a ketogenic diet is sodium, is salt. So make sure that you start using salt if you're not already using it. Of course, talking to your physician to make sure this is okay for your particular medical conditions. But typically we're having to increase our intake of salt when we go to a ketogenic diet because you lose a lot. You end up urinating it out, and low salt is much more of an acute, urgent situation than is higher salt. So that's something you might need to monitor and talk to your physician about. So also just talking about other GI distress issues that can happen when you change your diet to any diet, actually. Your digestive system likes the same thing every day. And so when you do something different, you radically change your diet, you can get either constipation or diarrhea. So just realize that any major dietary change is going to cause your digestive tract to rebel a little bit until it settles in. So that could be an issue. But sometimes it is the change in the foods that you're eating. And so one thing that can happen is that when people go on a ketogenic diet, sometimes they are supplementing with MCT oils. And too much of MCT oils can cause diarrhea and some GI distress. So what I recommend when you're first adopting a ketogenic diet, stick with just those real foods. Don't try to take any ketone supplements, special keto snacks and bars and shakes and stuff like that. Just eat real food. Start with that and you'll have less likely to have any GI distress. Another thing that people have commented to me on is food boredom, or what they call food boredom, because they feel like they're just eating the same thing every day and they're not getting enough variety. And what this usually is that it's just different foods that they're having every day, and a different set of foods. So they're used to having every morning oatmeal for breakfast, a sandwich for lunch, and a pizza for dinner. And they can have that same thing every day, 5 out of 7 days a week, and they don't get bored with it. But they're all very high carb foods. Now they're switching over and they're having eggs and bacon every morning for breakfast, and a salad for lunch, and a steak and another salad for dinner. And they feel like they don't have enough variety. But really, if they would go back and examine what they ate before, it probably didn't have a whole lot of variety either. So it's getting used to these new foods and finding ones that you really enjoy and are satiating for you. The other thing is that we tend to use food for entertainment. So it's not just that you're it's just you're in general bored, and so you're using food to give yourself some excitement, and that's not what food is supposed to be for. It's to nourish you. Hopefully it's also delicious and satisfying, but it's not meant to entertain you. So keep that in mind. And then another issue I wanted to talk about is bariatric surgery. So sometimes with bariatric surgery, there can be, for particular types of bariatric surgeries, it can be, you may have difficulty adding a lot of extra fat to your diet, particularly with the Roux-en-Y procedure. There may be issues with adding a lot of fat. Don't worry about it. Start with restricting your carbohydrates and add fat to your diet as you can tolerate it. But don't worry about trying to get in a certain level of fat intake. Eat to satiation and stop, and don't worry about it. And you'll gradually increase your tolerance for eating fat. And the same thing can be said for if you've had your gallbladder removed, because your gallbladder emits that bile that helps you digest fat. And so now when you have your gallbladder removed, you just kind of leak a little bit of bile all day long instead of just in response to eating fat. And so it can be sometimes difficult for you to digest fat. And so again, starting with restricting your carbohydrates and then gradually increase your fat consumption as you can tolerate it. And what will happen is if you eat more fat than you can tolerate with either of these situations, with a Roux-en-Y bariatric procedure or with a gallbladder removal, if you eat more than you can tolerate, you might get some diarrhea. So, so that will be your barometer, is that if you're noticing some GI distress like that, back off on the fat a little bit, but keep your carbohydrate intakes low. So thanks for joining me today, and I'll talk to you again soon.